meeting to order. It is 7:02. If you could first please stand for the Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we go on, as usual, we're going to first confirm our next meeting dates,
Oh, my apologies.
which is not April 23rd.
I thought that was a good one.
I mean, technically it is our next meeting, but it's a current meeting, so that would be the
My apologies.
May 28th. Next, will be the next, is that the 4th? There's no, yep. What is the 3rd?
It's 28.
Yep, 28th. Will be the next one. Does that work for everyone in this meeting, in this board? So if any board members are put on cases that are continued, you'll be here? How about the applicants for this evening? Should your cases be continued to that meeting? Does that meeting date work for you guys? Okay. Perfect. The first business order that we have on the agenda right now is to review, discuss, and act Stonegate Landing LLC. But we need our attorney here for that, who's not, oh, she is on, but Federoff is not here yet for that one. So
I don't think he'll.
is anything going on? Should we just skip over that one completely then? Or just, because we have no new, we're waiting on him to give us an update.
Correct.
And he hasn't given us anything yet.
Correct.
Is it because is he waiting on something from us?
No. He's supposed to provide some plans to Wesson and Sampson so they can wrap up their report.
And do we know if they've even gotten them yet from him?
Haven't heard anything yet.
That's not him.
No.
Okay, so we just, I guess, I mean, we don't have to motion to continue that case item, really. It's not, we're not voting anything, so we'll just move on to the next public hearing.
Sorry.
Yep.
Are you just, this is Marguerite.
Okay.
I'm just taking my camera off because I had a medical procedure earlier today.
That's fine.
Are you going to be continuing the case? You just said, as you said, there's nothing necessarily pending before you, but do you want to at least announce that it's going to be put on the agenda for the next meeting?
Okay, yes, so yeah, we're not done talking about it, but it's just nothing
Nothing to report.
to report on so far for this one.
And you want to keep it on the agenda for the May 28th meeting?
Yes, we will. Hopefully I mean, as of right now, we will, unless we hear if we hear soon enough that we know we're not gonna have anything ready by then we won't, but as of right now, we'll keep it on. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we will go down to our first item agenda for the public hearing, which is 5I for Frank Luongo, 0 Horton Street. So it's confusing, we do have 2 0 Horton Streets, so they're both obviously separate cases, they both happen to be on that same street, so. This one is involving one that's on map 10, lot 29. John, can I have 3 voting members, please?
We have voting members from the last meeting.
Oh, that's right, that's one that's okay.
So that would be Zach
Yeah,
Karen,
yeah.
Jonathan Gale, and Susan Pritchard.
Okay, and we're all here, so that works. Okay, so Attorney Ferris, you just wanna, we do have some new updates with this case. John, myself, and Sue.
Okay.
Wrong one.
Good evening. Attorney Robert Fredericks of Dayton, Massachusetts. I represent Frank Luongo. Again, present is the whole Luongo clan. With him is his wife Ann, his 2 daughters, and their husbands. So this is a continuation of the previous meeting. I'm going to start with, I should probably start with an apology. Marguerite, I emailed this memorandum to you probably 3 minutes ago. So I just finally finished it, but in preparation of this meeting, there was a discussion between Marguerite and myself and just trying to do some things, kind of reduce some things to writing. So I put together a package, so I'd just like to submit that for the record for each of you so you can review it, and then I'll go through it all with everybody who's here. I'm about to die of wires. You do the first
On
one.
camera, too.
Thank you.
Wouldn't be the clumsiest thing I've done in the last 20 minutes. And then I'm going to also, while I'm doing this, there's a separate set of plans that I'm gonna distribute, and I'll cover all of this. This is a second design, if you will.
So it's in lieu of-
Separately than the one we have right now?
Yeah, and I'll walk you through all of this stuff in a moment. I just wanna try to get the logistics done. And I'll explain kind of how it all came to be.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe you didn't know we had them also too.
All right, so I'm going to start kind of with the last line of my memorandum because I actually just sort of kind of threw it in. The first part of the issues that I dealt with was, as you may recall, there was a homeowner who purchased an abutting lot who was not listed on the abutters list. It was raised to our attention.
Right.
I did the investigation at the Registry of Deeds. I found them. They purchased it approximately mid-March.
Yeah, it was
So
right around the case.
in the last 3 pages, you'll see the certificate of mailing that I sent,
Yep.
along with kind of a letter, because Kerry had produced to me the standard package, but that reference to the March meeting. And not only that, just because there had been, you know, some things that had gone on in meetings.
Right.
We also had an abutters meeting that they weren't privy to prior to them even purchasing the lot. I just wanted to let them be familiarized with what had gone on, how we got here, why I didn't originally include them in the mailing,
Yep.
that sort of thing. So that was all done. It was signed for, and that was it. I have not heard anything from them. I don't know if they're present.
Okay, but at least we know that they did at least get it.
Yeah,
So whether they just
Right.
even open it after the fact, but at least they did get it.
Yeah, I'd also just, since we're just kind of following up on, there was conversations about Mr. Dave Reese. He's somebody who's
Yes.
extremely well-known in town, you know, somebody I know well. I did reach out to him. I had a phone conversation. I'd represent to the board, he's not opposed. He's, you know, he doesn't have any feelings towards the project, I think would probably be the most accurate way of
So
describing it.
you would say neutral? if
Yeah, I would say,
anything? Okay.
yeah, just neutral towards the project. You know, it was just a situation where, again, because his name was raised, born and raised in Dayton as he is, I wouldn't feel right in not contacting him.
Right.
So just trying to allay all of the concerns that were raised about the abutters issues, I did reach out, I did try to make all of the requisite attempts
Okay,
to
perfect.
make contact. Okay? All right, so now kind of going back. So where we were at the original hearing, obviously we had presented it in a way of a concept that we're trying to use the land for what was less than potentially a more onerous or more hardship use, that, at least as it relates to the abutters. So we had gotten there. Marguerite had reached out to me to have some discussions about the proposals and submittals. We talked today. So what I did, and I'm just going to kind of walk through the memorandum, was try to lay out our case for why we're asking for relief. And I'll do that prior to going into the plans that I provide.
Okay.
Okay. So at first, obviously, just to recap, this is a situation where there's a lot next door which is not subject to this application. It's a conforming lot. Mr. Luongo is purchasing that from Mr. Backlund, as well as the subject lot. The subject lot is about 11 acres with approximately 168-ish feet of frontage.
Yeah.
So the intent is for him to subdivide the subject lot into 2 lots, and then he'd have 3 lots side by side for him and his 2 daughters, okay? That is the intent. His daughter's a school teacher in town. The Luongos are actually from Rehoboth. You know, they're local folk. They're not looking to try to speculate on this or anything like that. So I just want to make sure that we're clear about that. From there, obviously, and, you know, Mr. Backlund, I don't know if he's actually logged in, had been approached by a developer about trying to put in something like 16 homes. So in doing all of this, the idea was that was not in concert or a character of the neighborhood. Him and Mr. Luongo met, they discussed it. At the previous meeting, there was a discussion of the water moratorium that's also in effect. I would suggest to you that moratorium should abrogate the 200 feet requirement down to 175 feet. I think it's certainly a hardship that we didn't create, has nothing to do with us, save for the fact that it exists, and therefore I would suggest to you that we start from the concept that really what we're talking about is 175 foot of frontage. Okay? Then what I did on the first page was just basically look at the nature and character of the neighborhood itself. Because if you take the 200 feet we have in the complying lot, the 168, obviously we have 368 feet of frontage. If we equitably divided that over the 3 lots, you're talking roughly 122 feet of frontage. We could do that. It's just, you know, it wouldn't be hard. If you look at the neighborhood, and again, I broke it out into the 4 lots, which is immediately in front of our parcel. Our parcel, again, goes up and behind 4 lots. And each of them range from 150 to 160 feet. The 3 lots across the street, 140, 166, 150. And then if you continue, God, I'm so bad with direction. I believe it's west. I think it's west. It's 125, 170, 150, and 145. My only point is to suggest to you that, you know, however we're doing this, we're not out of character and nature of the neighborhood. I tried to say that, but I think just if you see it in the table, it shows that a little more substantially what we're talking about as far as the character of that neighborhood. So that's what we're talking about. Now, when you get into the hardship, Marguerite wanted this specifically kind of covered, and that was really the subject of our conversation today. Chapter 40A-10 requires, first of all, issues relating, well, for this board to grant relief, owing to the circumstances relating to the soil condition, shape, topography of such land and structures, so forth and so on. So her question to me was, what about this land is so unique and specific? So I've laid out several different factors. The first I went into is the size of the lot all by itself. The size of the lot and the fact that it can be combined with the lot next door is a substantially unique circumstances that this board will not be confronted with in the future. It again allows for such a subdivision that would be so onerous to the town, to the abutters, that factor cannot be just disregarded. So just the sheer size of the lot should be considered. Then when you look back towards the fact that the size itself can be considered into a retreat lot. Now, I'm going to go back to that at the very, very end.
Yep.
That's the subject of the second plan. I took the comment on that, and we can kind of discuss the differences of the two.
Yep.
But the point of that is the size of it does allow for a retreat lot with enough land that you'd still have a second non-conforming lot. So in that scenario, what we have is one complying lot and one non-complying lot,
Right.
instead of the 2 non-complying lots. But again, just the sheer size and scope of it is so unique. It's not a factor that's going to affect any other lots under your authority or jurisdiction, and is very particular and unique to this circumstance. The second I would suggest to you, as far as the specific nature of the land, is the shape of the lot. The lot is not a regularly shaped lot. It's a so-called pork chop shaped lot. That is really hard to say. If you look at the plan, one of the lots takes an up and a hard left turn behind the 4 abutters. That is extraordinarily important when you look at what its impacts are to those abutters, but also to what the property would then lend itself to. So the shape of the lot is peculiar and unique in that it's not just pork chop, but it's an extremely large pork chop. So from within this, you have a unique shape that then requires you to balance the abutters' interests along with whatever petitioner's interests that you may consider, whether it be this application or any other different. So again, the lot itself requires relief from the strict application because, as we'll see later, I think the strict application of your bylaws would result in a miscarriage of justice. The third element for me is the topography of it, and in particular when you combine it with the fact that there's wetlands on the back of the lot.
Back corner, yeah.
If you look at the original plan, it has an elevation established on it. The front of the lots is fairly inconsistent and incongruous. In other words, it's kind of all over the place. And then you get to the back and it drops precipitously, and that's when you also get into the wetlands. But again, the size of these lots is so oversized that it allows us to put the building envelope nowhere near that back topography and nowhere near the wetlands. So we're able to build in just uplands and not have to involve any sort of conservation issues or anything like that. But again, to have such a large lot that combines not only the topography but also these wetland issues, again, is something that's unique to this lot. And you're talking about now multifactorial problems: shape, the size, the topography, the wetlands. All of these represent to you something that's not going to happen on every lot that comes before you. This is unique to this specific lot, and I would suggest to you that, given the contours and the nature of it, the lot itself is worthy of granting relief. Okay? Now, if you continue on, the next prong for you guys is the literal enforcement. If you consider the literal enforcement of your bylaws, what you get to is that there's a potential massive more development of the lot, to these two lots, whatever it would be. And I'm not an engineer. I know there's wetlands back there. We had plenty enough conversation. My point is, it would be a lot more than 3. I don't know what the number would be, but if you put the two together, certainly with the amount of frontage, you could pop a road in there, cul-de-sacs and all that sort of stuff. And now you're burdening the neighbors. You're probably not going to have the setbacks that we've established, certainly if you're going to try to do that sort of density. And if you look at it, we're 200 and 250 feet from the back property line. So we're significantly away from any of the abutters. So the enforcement of this, if you look at it in a strict form, yes, we're non-compliant. But if you strictly complied it, something worse would happen to the town, to its services, to its police force, all the resulting services, not to mention the schools, which we also know is an issue. So all of these things lead to the conclusion that literal enforcement of the bylaws is not a proper exercise of your discretion in this case. The last, relief is not more substantially detrimental. It's the same analogy, the same analysis if you really look at it. What we're suggesting to you preserves the nature and character of the neighborhood, where if we don't do what we're trying to do, whatever developer comes in, they propose something that's going to be vastly more inconsistent with the nature of the character. You're going to get more traffic up at that area, which is relatively remote, and now the whole thing's a completely different animal. So for all of those reasons, I think it's beyond debate that this board is well within its granting discretion to say that this lot is ripe for relief. And then when you look at the equities of it all and the hardships that would be caused to the applicants, to the abutters, to the town, I think proving our plan makes one of the two plans makes the most sense. So now I'm going to turn to just the two plans. So what was secondarily discussed outside of the board after the meeting was the application of the so-called retreat bylaw. And that's applicable to this case. We went and I just think anytime a board raises these concerns, it's worthy of an investigation. So we put a plan together to show you what that would look like. It's clear that we could create a retreat lot. And if you consider what the resulting non-compliant lot would be, that non-complying lot would actually be less non-complying. You'd have approximately 122 feet of frontage in the non-complying lot. Of course, you'd have the 40 that's required on the retreat lot, and about 3.25 acres. The other retreat lot, obviously, is the 8-acre piece. But my issue with that is that now we're creating something that doesn't look right. And I'm just going to put it that way. I don't think it looks right. You've got a 40-foot little driveway going to the back that goes around behind the neighbors. It's unnecessary, where you could just make, I think, more equally shaped lots. In discussing this, and I know Mr. Aguirre is present today, I think he shares a similar position as to the petitioner. And I want to make it clear, our position and our discussion with you certainly will shape this. Our position is that the original plan is the better plan.
Over the retreat lot plan?
Yes, and I understand that the board has an interest in trying to apply its regulations and trying to do it uniformly. My point is, in this particular case, where you have so many multiple factors of the lot itself, once you get to the conclusion that you should grant relief, then I think you have to look at, with common sense, between the two plans and see what makes sense. And so this would be one of my first and best arguments, and I understand that you guys are not going to have any role in this, but I have 2 kids. Mr. Longo has 2 kids. Putting him in a position where he's going to create one lot that's giant and one lot that's little, and then trying to figure out which of his kids he likes best is a crappy place to be. And I understand that you guys, that doesn't have anything to do with you. But I'm here to represent him, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I wouldn't point that out. I know that, well, I'm not going to say which of my kids would end up in a short lot, but it would be a difficult decision, and my wife would be mad at me for a while. And that's one of the things in this, is I think the equity of the division into the two non-complying lots makes a heck of a lot more sense than creating a 40-foot lot. And there are some real-world impacts to doing that. You create a 40-foot, access road, and something goes on, maybe the fire department misses the road, and now there's a fire back there. And I realize that's a remote chance because of street signs and stuff like that, and all of them are, but it's still a chance, so why create it? If everything's more equal, it's going to be vastly more visible and easily more detectable to all of your emergent systems. And I think that's really something that the board can weigh in and say, that's a factor that we should look at, because that is within our discretion, and it is something that we should be considering. The other part of this, I think, is, just the aesthetics of it, to my eye, and maybe it's because I have a symmetry problem caused by my wife, but everything looks more well-regulated in an even situation, where you have, again, it's approximately 88 square feet of frontage on the front. You've got the even lots. To my eye, it just, again, you're the one who has to try to regulate this and try to make everything look more uniform. And that's just, to me, something where the lots are even, just seems to be a more aesthetically pleasing. And I apologize for using that, but that's really something that, to me, I would suggest to you is something that you guys should be looking at. And again, it's unfortunate in this case where, yes, I can say that if you look at that retreat lot, yes, that's more compliant. But again, I don't think that promotes necessarily all of the interests that are present. And in this case, I certainly don't think it's something that's more in tune with the character of the neighborhood. I think when you consider on equity, what we're proposing in the original plan is vastly more, consistent with what the neighborhood is. So I've been talking for entirely too long, but you guys gave the attorney a microphone.
Yes,
So,
yeah, right. I'm not sure if Jim has had any exposure to this prior to this meeting, and I'm curious to see what he has to say regardless. But first, I do want to just ask Marguerite, I know you just got the memorandum just now, as we did, but based on what you heard and maybe have read so far, how do you feel about the whole legal aspect in your conversations that you've had prior to the meeting?
So I appreciate Attorney Fredericks providing some of the variance-based grounds. You would need that for either plan. And I obviously, as the attorney for the town, need to share that, that he was correct in his statement that the second plan does provide more conformity to the zoning bylaws. He's given you an argument as to why the first plan would be a plan that he would be looking at here. In either case, you would need the underlying grounds for the variance, which have been provided. So, I think that there really does need to be some thought from the board as to how they want to look at the obligation to utilize retreat lots when that exists. And if they feel that there might be a reason not to use it in this case, that I would encourage you to be clear about what those reasons are, so that in the future, if you decide that you want to impose a retreat lot requirement on a petitioner, that you are understanding the distinction of this case and the uniqueness of this case in that situation.
Right, because as of right now, so Attorney Fredericks, your your reasoning for not favoring the retreat lot is strictly just the aesthetic look of the property lines? Not property lines, but
I think it's more more consistent with the character of the neighborhood as established now. I think creating a 40-foot front lot, and again, if you go back to the front of that table, I think it's, it's constructive when you look at the whole type of the neighborhood. If you've got 90-foot lots, that's more consistent with the neighborhood than having one just random 40-foot right in the middle of it. So I understand that the retreat lot exists. I think that exists for, different reasons than this application. In other words, if you have one oversized lot and insufficient frontage, I think that's the reason why you guys adopted that, is, relief for that one lot. I don't think it was really intended to create restrictions or artificial measures of how one lot would be divided. I just don't see that to be the intent or purpose of that retreat lot. So, in my mind, it's more uniform and consistent with the neighborhood to go with the even division of the frontage.
Jim, what are your thoughts on, have you had any exposure to this prior to this meeting?
Yes, I have several
Okay,
things to
okay,
say.
okay. If I just threw this in front of you now, I don't want you to feel like you had pressure to.
No, that's fine. Hello, everyone. Good evening, Dayton. Yeah, so I have a couple of comments. Thank you, Attorney Fredericks, for covering the bases as to why a variance would be applicable. And Attorney Mitchell, thank you for your comments as well. I think the board has to realize that in deciding this case, we will have future lots in front of us that may take advantage of the retreat lot bylaw. First, I will say that I was a co-author of the retreat lot bylaw. It was specifically designed, as Attorney Fredericks said, to take a lot that had excess acreage with insufficient frontage and prevent that lot from becoming a subdivision. So it's been used many times throughout town. Most of those lots have less than 100 feet of frontage. So we have succeeded, in my opinion, when we wrote that bylaw, to help prevent large or larger subdivisions and take that property and use it for just one single-family home. This particular lot differs from that. It has a lot more than 100 feet of frontage. We have several hundred feet of frontage. So that's where I think it differs in application with other petitions that have been before you. The other concern that I have is from a public safety perspective. If you look at the two plans, the retreat lot plan shows a driveway that has a much tighter radii to get to the property in the back. That is going to be difficult to navigate with fire apparatus. I understand that lot lines can be moved, but in trying to conform with the retreat lot bylaw, they've now created a situation where we might have an issue with public safety.
That's almost a 90-degree turn.
Exactly. If you
That's
look at
pretty
the
damn
first
close.
lot, the first plan that was submitted to you, that has a much smoother radii,
does, yeah.
which we would have no problem getting the ladder truck down
Right,
there.
definitely.
Hopefully, we never need to do that.
But-
However, if we need to, we can. So that said, I think it's a fairly unique petition in front of you. I think the Attorney Fredericks has laid out a good case as to why granting this would be appropriate. I'll leave it in your hands. I do support the application.
As it stands, with not the retreat lot plan? Okay. Board members, do you have any comments or questions? I will turn it to,
Well, one
Yeah,
question I
yep.
had was, we talked about a private way for those two lots. You're making the first lot 175-foot frontage, you're changing it from 200 to 175, no matter what, is that correct?
Well, so you're talking about the non-conform, the previously conforming lot.
Correct.
We're not touching that. We're just
So
leaving
it's
that.
still gonna be 200?
That's just staying at 200, yeah. I mean, again, we could have gotten into, moving the lot lines.
Yeah.
But it seemed like that was, like, again, just muddying the waters. So I didn't want to bring in a lot that didn't otherwise need to be subject to the petition.
Okay, so I was wondering about a private way to those two other lots that are in question,
Okay.
which to me then we would not have two driveways going down in this and going down in this. It would be wider a private way than two driveways, which you had mentioned as far as emergency vehicles. You didn't want the space cramped that they couldn't get in and out, so that would also allow a larger space for them to get down there.
just a question. So you're referring to like a shared private driveway that both homes would use?
Those two, yes.
I understand what you're saying. I've never seen that in this community, nor in the communities surrounding us. That would be two dwellings on one lot, and that's actually prohibited by zoning.
That's what I was trying to be interested in. That was like, I don't know how that would,
No,
how it would
well,
work.
what I mean is instead of having two driveways for those two back lots that are essentially landlocked,
Yeah.
have one larger one, which would be more of a private way. I mean, a driveway is a private way also, going back to both, that would lead to those two back lots
Okay, so it's a good point to discuss.
that are non-conforming
I
lots.
do see what you're saying,
Yeah.
but
I can tell you that the reason why you don't see it is I think the Luongos will own this property for many, many years. However, if someday they don't own it and we have two separate owners, now we have an issue with access. Who controls access?
who plows it? Who,
So,
because if it's a private way, it's
it-
like,
it-
so, right.
It now becomes a huge issue. I've seen it in case law where people block the access and now we have to go to court for you to get to your own property. And that just, it's a good point, but I just think it creates a whole other level of issues that would have to be dealt with.
It makes
And it would
sense,
be the-
literally on paper, it makes sense why you would, why that could be an option, but,
And it would be
Yeah.
the first time I've seen it in Dayton.
yeah, definitely.
That's why we didn't entertain it, is I haven't seen it otherwise, I hadn't seen it otherwise proposed, so I just stayed away from it.
Right,
something
yeah.
like that.
Even in other projects before us, when not the private way, but a shared driveway comes into effect, that even causes us to talk about that for a while, you know? Sue, do you have any more
I
questions?
do.
Good.
So the lot that's 200-foot frontage.
Yes.
Then what is the actual frontage, I guess, for the driveway of those two driveways?
It's
Per
the actual,
driveway,
approximately 88 feet.
88 feet.
Yeah, so that's off of my memory right now, but let me just confirm with the,
I thought one was 88, one was 83, but I just
it's,
wanted to
yeah,
verify
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's, hang on, let me open the plan. I've given away everything I have no more gifts. Can borrow mine.
I don't have the original plan.
We have 83 and 85, I think is what it actually is. I'm reading the plan right.
It looks like it.
Yeah, 83 and 85.
Right, I see, yeah.
I'm too proud to put glasses on.
That is correct.
Sue, any more questions?
No.
John?
I think Attorney Fredericks, first, thank you for the explanation. You answered the questions, if you remember, that I had in the first round last month by what you presented today. My question, though, is more for Town Council. Marguerite, can you tell me, from your perspective, if an approval puts us in a position of any precedent that we would need to think about going forward
Do you mean for the case we have as is?
for the case as is now?
So again, I think that it was very helpful for the board to be presented with all the various options, because sometimes, you know, as part of your analysis, you have to determine that a literal enforcement could result in substantial hardship. And obviously, one of the ways to make this more conforming would be to consider the retreat lot. If you are choosing as a board to approve a variance, and if you're choosing as a board to approve the first plan, which is not necessarily making it as conforming with the zoning bylaws as the retreat lot plan would, I think that it's really helpful for you, for purposes of potential argument, to really be clear that in your reasoning.
Marguerite, we're losing your audio a little bit. I don't know.
All right.
Sorry.
Be clear in your reasoning as to what the unique factors are, both with regard to the variance and why, in this case, you believe the plan of, you know, not using the retreat lot would be the more appropriate way to go. So I think you've been presented with a lot of that information tonight, and I would highly encourage the board, if that's the way that it chooses to vote, to make sure that it's clear in its reasons as to all of the unique features of this particular application that you're choosing to approve, both with regard to the variants themselves and why you might be choosing one of the two plan options over the other one. So that down the road, when an argument about precedence is presented to you, you have the ability to try to distinguish the case that might be in front of you in the future from this case.
Right.
Mr. Fredericks, I know this is going to sound like a cynical comment, so I'm going to ask everybody, please don't take it that way. But what assurance do we have in approving this that all three of these homes are going to be remaining with the family, and for how long?
So, I mean, I can't speak about what life may be, but the contacts that this family maintains with this community, I think is really, really relevant here. One of Mr. Longo's daughters is a school teacher in the state school systems. So it's not like we're talking about carpetbaggers or people who don't have any connection. They lived in Rehoboth. So again, they're right across the street. Mr. Luongo's operated a business for how many years consistently? How many years have you been in business?
Two businesses, but the youngest 20.
Yeah, so.
I don't mean to interrupt, but John, I had a curiosity, I don't mean to sound blunt. Why would you ask that? In the sense that we don't, us factoring in if it's gonna go to the builders or the owner's children or not, should not be factoring in whether we make a decision on it or not.
I'm asking that because that was one of the items that Attorney Fredericks noted significantly in his presentation.
Okay.
It is,
Okay.
and I think it's fair because it is something that I'm heavily relying upon because I think it's what makes the application to me, a resident of Dayton, to wanted to get involved in the application.
Okay.
They're just good people. That's what it is. I mean, that's the truthful answer, Mr. Gale, is when you sit and you talk with them and you take the measure of them. Mr. Aguirre's had the opportunity, I know, to discuss this with the family. They're not speculating on the land. They're not trying to make a whirlwind. If they were trying to do that, they'd buy the land and then say, okay, we'll do the engineering and see if we can get 10 lots out of it. They're doing exactly the opposite. So they're not trying to maximize the value of this deal at all for themselves. What they're trying to do is just create a situation where, a dad has his two kids on either side of him.
Right.
I don't know why a dad would want the grown kids that close, but I haven't gotten there yet.
I agree
so
with you.
I'll defer to him.
No, and I just want to be clear that this question, as those of us sitting here, and you know too, and Mr. Aguirre knows too, is a question that we often ask.
Sure.
When we hear of land that's going to be used for multiple properties within the same family.
I think it's extremely fair because I've been doing this for 27 years. I understand, you go to these hearings and it's, oh, well, I just want an apartment for my kid or a lot for my kid. It's always something that you stress and put together. In this particular example, I think the Luongos have been in a search of a parcel of land that they could do this with and create a family situation like this for years. So that once they get it, they're not going to be just selling it off. There's an uncertainty to this world that I would never want to, speak against. I mean, I don't want to, I'd certainly say that they're going to live there for 120 years. I mean, you don't know. But the intent of this is for their family. And that's all I can offer you is a sincere intent at this moment in time.
Fair answer. Thank you.
Greg, I know you have a board member. Do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, Rob, can I show you something here?
Absolutely. I saw you working, Mark.
So,
I knew it was too. That's why.
I'm not opposed to anything that you guys are talking about, but I was just thinking about this fire truck radius thing. So obviously, we can't go into 8 acres on this piece of property to still meet the retreat lot. But what's the chances of going something like this and then giving this one more back here? So that radius isn't so acute on that corner, still make the apparatus be able to get up into there, do a turnaround. Are they opposed to doing something like that, keeping the driveway so it ain't so tight right there in that front corner?
I think the issue was just, again, trying to, I don't know if I should get some back to this.
It's okay, I just wanted to show you.
No, I think the issue, it's a fair question. It just, the family interest here is to try to do it equally.
Yeah.
There's no stepping around that. Again,
You
and
could
I'm
give
not
them-
trying to
could
dodge
give
it.
them more back here.
Right, but, you could potentially try to do some things to try to rearrange some of the land. I think the question comes to the board of, would you prefer it all be equal, or would you, and that's
Well, the
fundamentally a
retreat lot
question.
thing, I'm very intrigued with that, I like that. So, but the corner radius, I hate to have you come in and say, all right, this is what we're proposing, this is what we accept. You go to the fire department and he says, how am I gonna get that corner?
I mean, Jim's right.
Now
That
you're
driveway's
coming
tough.
back in front of us. I'd like to bring it up now. I think if we took a little bit of this corner property and gave that, and then take from this one back here, see, same square footage.
So,
Just
so
helps that corner.
almost making that bigger that way to
Yeah,
increase.
see it right here, the dotted line I made?
To make,
pushing that small lot into the wetland.
right, that's, he's getting pretty, I mean, he's very, very, I mean, as it is now, he's not dangerously close, I mean, that way, but any shifting of
There's
that is
wetlands
gonna
here?
put him
Wetlands here.
back here. So if, he's saying the more you move this back, you're gonna, see, when you drew your line out, you even crossed the wetland barrier.
I understand.
Oh,
that,
you
but
do?
it's
Okay.
Still square footage to the lot, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, oh, yeah, but, right.
Because if we approve this at that tight radius, and then we go see the fire chief, and he says, how am I going to,
That's why the other plan is better.
Well, yeah, we'd only be, that driveway would only be like that if we did it if we voted it as the retreat wall, which because the retreat wall would have to go before planning at that point.
all I got in
Yes.
front of me is the two
That's
same
what, that's the
lots.
thing, to keep that in mind, so if,
That's why ultimately we're asking you not, I mean, if I wasn't, I really don't want to go down the road of the retreat lot. If the board tells me that that's the only way you're gonna approve it, I think I need to just,
No,
have a
that's,
conversation.
I mean, I think you've come in front of us, you have topography, soil, wetlands, all that stuff is there. This was the original one.
This actually, this radii meets public safety requirements.
Yeah, okay.
That one does not.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the one I was looking
And again, I
We
just.
have two of the same.
Try-
yes.
Yeah, just trying, and again, I was avoiding that, trying to get into that back parcel, because if you get back there, it's, again, it's wet, it's the topography becomes more acute, and I just run into more and more problems for them.
Yeah.
And those are legitimate, I mean, no, just to.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
That's definitely a hardship right
Yeah.
there, to do the retreat lot. Like
The,
I say,
the safety aspect alone
Yeah.
is, I mean, for me, like, if, as a voting member, a reason why I would say the retreat lot is not the best way to go
Yeah, now that I see
is because
this.
of the driveway I mean, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but that
Well,
is a big reason.
I, for one, am very happy that I was smart enough to erase it and not Mr. Aguirre.
Touche.
Once
Like I
again,
say,
Mr.
though,
Aguirre
so-
proves better control over this than I have.
Now that I've seen the last one. in
So
front of me-
the plans that you brought us over today, we
We
already
already
had that, so that's why we're
Yes,
trying.
yes, yes,
so-
I
when I
had
was
submitted
looking
those
at it, I'm like,
electronically,
this isn't
yes,
gonna
I had submitted those
Which
electronically.
is fine, but now we're seeing it compared to the,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Greg, what else do you got?
So, obviously, I'm not opposed to doing the original drawing that you guys have going on here due to the radius for the fire apparatus. I don't think it's detrimental to the neighborhood. He has his
No,
hardships.
I agree with
I've
that.
heard him on multiple different entities with the topography, the soil, the wetlands, the type of the lot, the angle. I like the idea we're locking up over, how many acres is this whole parcel?
together, it's about 15 acres between the
15
two.
acres of
Crazy,
land.
it's crazy. I mean,
And
that's a
putting
lot.
3 homes for a family.
Yeah.
I feel, to me, I'm okay with what I've heard. I'm not a voting member, but I like
Yeah,
what
no.
I see. This does tie up all the property. There will be no further building on it.
And I think too, when we're talking about setting precedent, doing it as a retreat lot sets more of a dangerous precedent.
I agree, safety-wise, I don't think. we
So
can.
I think we're setting less of a dangerous precedent if we go with the original case, is how I feel. But
That's all I have right now.
Dave, do you have anything?
I'm a fan of the first plan.
As it was submitted, you're saying the original plan, okay. Is there any different reasons why?
It makes less of that hairpin turn a little bit.
Well, there was no hairpin turn. For the first one, this creates a hair, it wasn't like, it wasn't less of a hairpin turn, there was no hairpin turn. Now there is one, well, not now, with the potential retreat lot plan creates one. Marguerite, do you have any more questions or comments in case we are choosing to close the public input portion of the case?
Thank you. So the only other thing I would mention is that in other applications within that neighborhood where you have granted variances for frontage, there have been 2 general conditions that have typically been imposed, if you want to consider that.
Sure.
And talk to the applicant about it. Those conditions are typically that there would be a deed restriction on the lots that the variances were granted for, so that there would be no more than 1 single-family dwelling on the property.
Right.
And there would also be a requirement that there is no further subdivision of the property.
And that's 2 separate conditions, sorry?
Those are 2 separate
Okay.
conditions imposed on whatever lots you're granting variances.
Those are essential to what we've proposed, so we'd be in agreement with those.
Okay. Are there any,
No other comments.
okay, any members of the public, butters or anything that are here for this? Because I'll mostly probably here for the other 0 Horton Street, I would imagine. 'Cause I don't see any faces from the last meeting. Right, for this, no one's for this one? Okay. So that being said, I will make a motion that we close the public input portion of this case and allow us to deliberate. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so, just a reminder, and no more questions can be posed to the applicant or any, or about our comments, but we can deliberate and discuss how we feel about this.
Just voting members or?
No, anybody. I mean, well, anybody on the board. But,
So, I'm for the applicant with the first drawing submitted to us last month. I think they've met their hardship requirements of the topography, land, wetlands, and obviously the water moratorium. That's a huge thing. Soil, there's a bunch of different things in this particular application that does meet some hardships in my eyes.
John, anything else you?
No, I would agree with Greg. I just think when the motion is made, again, as Marguerite noted, with
With-
stipulations.
The deed restrictions, yeah.
Yes, the deed restriction that only one, so remember, so when the motion's made,
Both.
with two conditions, one with no further subdivision,
Correct.
and, only one dwelling
Correct.
on each lot the variance is applied to.
That is correct.
Sue, do you have any other feelings on this? I mean, are you still feeling that option A, so to speak,
yeah.
is the best way to go?
First, yes, the first plan, right.
Okay.
And then with those restrictions.
Okay, so that being said, I feel that I'm content with going in, option A2. Just as a reminder, we have to make sure we're stipulating exactly why, specifically two things. One, that this applies to our reasons why we're voting for it, and why we feel the other option is not the best option. We have to be very clear on both of those things. Not part of the motion, but after we make the motion, if there is one. Make sure we're all very clear on that. So I will make the motion that we approve let me make sure I have this right, the 0 Horton Street, map 10, lot 29 variance application, with the two conditions that, one, no further subdivision is to be done of the parcels, and condition 2, only one dwelling to be on each parcel. Is there a second?
Second.
That was,
Either of us.
okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Jonathan, aye.
Susan Pritchard, aye.
Zachary Karen, we only need the roll call vote if we have a member. You're used to doing it because you've been on Zoom the past couple of meetings, but.
That's all right.
Okay, so with that passing, we need to make sure that we are stipulating why. Sue, do you want to go first, just your reasons why?
You go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I feel as though we have, I'm gonna start with how option B is not the best way to go. Simply with the fire apparatus potential with the hairpin turn that would create is more of a hazard than what the original plan has, as well as that we're setting in more of a variance, more of a, precedent if we approve it, or it goes before the planning board at that point as a retreat lot. And I do feel the hardships have been met, with the size of the lot as well as the topography. And I also want to say that if we went with any other options in terms of the plans we have before us, that would encroach more on the wetlands, which would be more of a detriment to the topography as well. John?
I actually was going to say almost the same thing.
Okay.
I definitely agree that there's a better opportunity if there's a need for emergency services, which we certainly hope there never will be with this plan, in terms of the way the driveway /
We
road.
almost have to assume there will be. It's
I
better
know, I'm
to
saying
assume
hope.
that there will be than assume there won't be.
Obviously, I'm saying I hope,
Oh,
we all hope there never will be. but
I'm not saying I wish there is, I'm just saying
Right, for
we
the-
have to, in our minds, we have to assume the worst for that kind of thing.
I think, I agree with the way council presented in that, this also eliminates the potential for other housing, other subdivision on that land as well, beyond the other items that were already mentioned.
And Sue, your reasons?
Well, the same as you and Jonathan, because of the fire, that one lot, and then the access just seems better planned out with that first plan.
And just to add on to, it's definitely more in character with the neighborhood,
And
I
yes,
admit, there was not a lot, not that we should be factoring this solely in, but there was not a lot of not denial, objections, thank you, with it. And I feel like with any other potential option, that yes, this would be the best solution, best option for the town as well.
right.
Okay, so you guys are all set. Thank you very much. No problem.
Enjoy your new homes.
Yes, I confused. We have two 0 Horton Streets.
Another zero.
We just give them a second to just clear out their saying bye, and then we'll move on. I think it's the first time we've had 2 variances for the same street. Because keep in mind, they're both named 0 until they get a house number, if they do. I don't think, how about you, Greg? Have you seen on a same meeting 2 different,
Nope, not
for
yet.
the same street?
Not yet.
I'll find Joe Pacheco and ask him, because
He'll tell you.
he'll go farther back, but I don't think there is been.
Been gone for a while.
Back when there were less streets in town, so it probably was the case. All right, so,
You're not used to that.
well, he's not wrong. Are you here also for the second case as well, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so we are moving on to the public hearing for 5II for David Tavares, again, David Tavares, also 0 Horton Street, map 10, lot 112. Just for any people listening, the reason why that both have 0 for the house number, so if any people are looking at this after the fact, is because houses have a house number of 0 until they're built, if they are built, which is why they both have 0 for this case tonight. So if you are inquiring about any of these cases with the town, make sure you are emphasizing which lot number you are referring to. The case we just heard was for lot 29. This coming case before us now is for lot 112, or 112, however they word it. John, can I have 3 voting members, please?
Sure, for this one yourself, Greg, Dave.
Sounds good. All right, sir, whenever you are ready. Oh. Yes, sorry. So the public notice as published, which is stamped and received by the town clerk on April 1st, 2024. Notice is hereby given, the Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals will conduct a public hearing at Old Town Hall, 1111 Somerset Ave, Dayton, Mass. On Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. on the variance application of David Tavares for property located at 0 Horton Street, being shown as Assessor's Map 10, Lot 112, pursuant of Section 2620, Table of Dimensional Requirements, Appendix B, of the Town of Dayton zoning bylaw, in order to construct a single-family dwelling with insufficient frontage.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Thomas Killoran, law offices at 350 North Main Street in Fall River, Massachusetts. I'm here this evening with the property owner, Mr. David Tavares. I'll pass out a copy of the plan, although you may already have that as part of your
Assuming there are no changes to after the fact, yes, but we'll take it.
Correct. I've highlighted the lot in question again. As has been pointed out by the chairman, we've got another 0 Horton Street before you this evening.
Wow. Talk about shape of a lot.
So I think the chairman just took the words right out of my mouth.
That's not a forge. I don't know what that would be, but sorry, go ahead.
So we're certainly dealing with a very uniquely shaped parcel of land, and I know that's one of the criteria for this board to take into consideration as to whether or not there is a hardship with this property and whether or not a variance is appropriate. The parcel is not only uniquely shaped, but is extremely large, sitting at approximately 10 to 11 acres in size. Unfortunately, there's only roughly, it's about 101 feet of frontage along Horton Street. Again, to try to describe this lot is quite difficult, but then it travels in an easterly direction, then opens up quite a bit to to a square, jogs off to the north, and then you've got a large rectangular portion to the rear. One of the other things that I'll bring to the board's attention, and I think it was probably it was part of the package, but I can show the board, as part of the assessor's record, shows that there is substantial wetlands on the rear of the property where that rectangular shape is as well. So this property not only is extremely large, so we've got a very large size, we've got a beyond unique shape to the property, but you're also dealing with soil conditions as there are wetlands in the rear of the property. I would suggest to the board that it's impractical and perhaps virtually impossible for this property to be developed as a conventional subdivision, and that its best and highest use, and quite candidly its only use, would be for the development of a single-family residence thereon. This property came before this board, albeit I think there were different members at
We
the
were talking
time.
before the meeting. I was in middle school.
There you have it. I didn't think you were on it, Mr. Karen.
No, I definitely
But
was
I looked
not.
at the names and not even Mr. Gale was on it.
No.
Didn't live here. You're right.
So, but this was back in September of 2005. Property came before this board, same shape. It hasn't been changed at all in these past almost 20 years. And the board at that time saw fit to grant a variance to allow for the construction of one single-family residence thereon.
Yes.
And that's exactly the same relief that we're asking for today. The applicant is fully committed to only having one residence on this property. He's committed to a restriction being placed on this property so that it cannot be further subdivided. Again, so this would strictly be one residential, single-family dwelling on a approximately 10 or 11 acre piece of property. Again, the reason why we're before you is because we unfortunately only have 101 feet of frontage along Horton Street. The applicant has advised me that there is town water that's available to the property. They've gone through the process of having a septic system plan by the by the Board of Health.
Okay.
So the next step in order to secure a building permit would be to get a variance from this board. One of the things that has been brought to my attention is why not a retreat lot? I don't believe the retreat lot bylaw was in place when the applicant, when the prior
definitely
owner
wasn't.
came before this
No.
board back in 2005. And with one of the authors, or maybe the author, in attendance tonight, I
Yeah.
certainly
Yep.
do not want to misrepresent what the retreat bylaw requires, but my reading of that bylaw, it talks about a further subdivision of the land. So a piece of property, as the way I would read it, is probably already developed with a single-family residence that has a lot of back acreage. And the intention of the bylaw, as Mr. Aguirre stated tonight, was to prevent a conventional subdivision from going in and having a number of house lots constructed on that back acreage. And as I read the retreat bylaw, it talks about the approval of a Form A plan, which a Form A plan will show a division of land. And it continuously throughout the retreat bylaw talks about further subdivision of land, further subdivision of land. In order for there to be a further subdivision, then there actually has to be a subdivision. We're not coming before this board with a subdivision of land. We've already have a pre-existing lot that's before you. So we're not seeking, or wouldn't be seeking any kind of division of the land. So that's why I don't think the retreat bylaw, retreat lot bylaw would be applicable to this lot. I think this would be a situation, as was in 2005, would it be appropriate to grant a variance? Again, giving the uniquely shaped lot, the size of the lot, and the soil conditions for this lot that are impacting this lot alone and not the surrounding neighborhood, that it is appropriate to grant a variance just as it was done almost 20 years ago. So with that, I would certainly entertain any questions from the board.
Just for a point of information, oh, sorry, I saw proposed building. I for some reason thought that meant that there's already one there, but no, so there's nothing at all on that lot as is.
Correct.
I guess more just from my own information because I, again, was 12 years old. Why has nothing been done with the property since? Again, that should, it's not gonna factor in our decision. I'm just curious as to why.
Good question.
what
I
came up
asked
with
the
it.
same thing. I wasn't able to get to that,
Okay.
an answer
Yeah,
for
I was
that.
just more
Obviously, it was
curiosity.
back in 2005. Variance has a shelf life of 1 year.
Yeah, right,
For
right.
for whatever reason, the variance was not exercised, so as this board knows, that it basically expires after that 1 year period of time, and the land has sit there ever since.
I had that question kind of before we started, but you almost answered it right away by saying there hasn't been any changes to the property. Because my first question was going to be, what changed from, like, did something happen during the shelf life that made you feel like you couldn't no longer do that plan, but nothing has changed with the property as, okay.
From what I could tell, although I wasn't in middle school at that time, I was a very young lawyer and wasn't involved in that initial variance application.
Right.
But from what I could see, there's been no change to these lot lines over the years.
If there are any board members that have questions, I am going to go to Jim first, just in case any of our questions are answered by him, because that will probably naturally come up anyway.
Yep.
So before we just ask a bunch of questions that we don't have answers yet to, maybe Jim can clarify whenever he's ready.
Speak here, Attorney.
It's more as long as you can be heard. That's the
that's fine.
most important part.
Oh, yes. So when I read this application, I too had the same thought that, is the retreat lot bylaw applicable? I think your explanation is spot on. I would agree with you on all counts. This particular lot is so uniquely shaped. There is a National Grid easement on this property which spans
Oh, really?
several hundred feet.
Jesus.
The backland is almost all consumed by wetland. So I don't think we would be able to cite a conventional subdivision on this property.
Wouldn't be possible.
So, but that said, I think Attorney Cloran's presentation about the best use of this property, especially considering it was received relief in previous years, I wouldn't see anything wrong with this petition moving forward.
Just kind of out of curiosity, let's say this was a brand new case and it wasn't approved prior. Would you have felt the same way? Like, I guess more of a question as to, were there any other reasons for the retreat bylaw besides the subdivision aspect that you think would apply here?
No, the retreat bylaw specifically was to take
and only that.
excess
Oh.
acreage with insufficient frontage
Okay.
that could have a yield plan presented that indicated that it was a buildable lot as right.
Okay.
So this, because of all of the appurtenances, would not meet that definition.
Okay, I just didn't know if they were like, okay, that's one aspect of it, but you had other reasons for it that
Right,
it
yeah,
met, but okay.
Right.
Any questions of the board? Board members first. Questions?
Jim, were you here in '05?
I was not, sir.
No?
I was here. I wasn't in middle school, but I was, yeah.
So you were, but, oh yeah, because you were,
I started here in 2010
So who was the building inspector in '05?
it was,
with Mr. Lawrence.
it was him all along until there was no one in between, right? I don't think so.
I mean, my thoughts, where this was approved in 2005 or 2006, I was reading, and there's absolutely no changes. It's identical.
Correct.
What you were previously gonna do, and not you.
Understood, but yes.
So I'm good with it.
I mean, we even have the written decision here
Yeah,
from that.
I
And
know.
Marguerite, I assume it's not often we hear something like this, but it's not out of the ordinary for us to hear. It just doesn't happen all the time. Do you feel as though, you know, with a written, when in a case like this, obviously the details will have to be changed to reflect this case, but would you feel as though like it's worth considering the fact that it was previously applied? We don't often take that into account, like, oh, it was approved before, but Marguerite, do you feel like that is something that we can take into account? Sorry.
Legally, that is absolutely something that can be taken into consideration by the board,
Okay.
Especially as you look at that prior petition, see the reasons that the board gave and determine if there's been any changes to the property, which in this case is, as far as everyone is presenting to you, there hasn't been anything.
Right. If he's saying, well, now we want two houses, that would be a whole different story. I know he's not, but that would be a whole different story. But in a case like this, where literally nothing is changing, it's so even like so any new dwelling, the same setback requirements, and nothing is changing on that aspect either.
All setbacks will comply with the zoning bylaws.
But I mean, okay.
Candidly, I don't know what was proposed, if there was anything proposed in terms of setbacks from the 2005 application, but certainly the structure that would be erected here would comply with all setbacks.
That's the only thing I thought of. Well, if now you're way close, if the new dwelling for whatever reason is now way closer to the property lines, and that would be a different story. But it's all the same. I mean, they all comply. So
It would comply, right? We're not asking for any kind of setback relief.
okay, so it's strictly just the
It's just the frontage, right?
Right. Okay. Greg, do you have anything?
Yeah, I heard you say the water department said you have a water service for this piece of property, even
So
though
I-
you're in a water moratorium?
I just want to, I didn't speak to the water department. I got that from the property owner. That's my understanding, Mr. Logan.
Would that be because it was once already approved back in 2005?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can speak on that.
I was just checking.
I also help work on the moratorium.
Okay,
Every lot that could be considered buildable has access to at least one service.
even-
So that is
even if
correct.
It's not built
Correct. So we factored in all of the potential buildable lots.
for the usage.
Right. This one had an expired variance, we understand that. However, we knew the petitioner could come back at any time. So it would have been factored into that 2 or 240 house lots that we accounted for that could be improved upon.
That's all I have.
Well, all right, John?
I don't have any questions. I too, when I listened to the original decision way back in 2005, that jumped out at me as a positive, obviously, as everybody's indicated, with no changes. The only thing, because this is new, I would still like to see the stipulations in there, again, the conditions, that nothing
Right,
else will be built
which
on
we,
this
because
property.
Marguerite
I
said it's
believe-
in the same,
I believe the attorney had them written up in the,
Yeah, and
his
just-
I didn't see
variance.
that in there.
Yeah, I
listened to
believe
it in
so.
there, but if they're in there, that's fine, but if not, then I
if,
think
right,
that's-
and Marguerite said because it's the same,
Yeah, right here, the deed will be restricted to prohibit more than one single-family dwelling on the construction or located on it. No further subdivision parcels will be allowed. Petitioner shall provide evidence to the building inspector that they have received a valid septic permit for the proposed single-family dwelling.
but you have received that permit, you said?
I'm sorry?
You have received the permit for already for septic or not yet?
The septic's been designed and approved. That's
Oh, okay, okay.
correct.
Right, that's what I thought you said beforehand. Okay, so that being said, we'll turn it over to the abutters. If there are any abutters here tonight that want to speak, they can just come to the podium and just make sure they say their name and address for the record, or you're just here just for more information. If you have questions that are more for the applicant than for us, by all means, just make sure you address it to the applicant. But you guys all here just for information, or are you all involved in the case, the lot?
I don't have to deal with that, right? I just would like to.
Could you come up and speak?
We tell, at least name your name and address for the record, though.
I'm sorry, where was it again?
Excuse me?
I didn't hear what you said.
John Buffington, 2685 Horton Street. My question is about the water.
Okay.
The Longos that just left, they're putting in 3 wells because of the water moratorium.
Actually, they have access to at least one water service because they
The
have
other 3 houses, 1 water.
one water service. So they could potentially get one water service, the other 2 houses would need wells.
Okay.
Yes.
The water pressure on Horton Street is questionable.
Because again, just like I said earlier, there's one buildable lot there, so that lot would have access to a water service.
And how much fill is gonna have to be brought in to make this land buildable?
I don't know.
Because there is a dairy barn foundation on this property. I'm not opposed to it by any means, but I just would like to know what the plan is to bring it in, because the front part of that property is ledge. When they built the dairy barn, my aunt was across the street. And the dairy barn was built, they had to build a foundation in the front for the milk room on top of the ledge.
I mean, it's certainly, if the applicant feels comfortable answering that to the best of their ability, they can, but something that we kind of faced a few meetings ago, and I hate to word it this way, but it's not for us to say, well, if it's gonna be to, if the developer has to do X, Y, and Z to the property, that's like, it's there. Oh, well, okay, it's just a general question, okay.
I'm not opposed to it.
You're just more curious, I mean, if you guys can answer it, go ahead.
I don't think a determination has been made on that yet.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to be coy.
No,
I'd
that's
certainly
fine.
like to provide answers to questions as they're presented, but I think it's going to be one of those things, assuming that they receive their approval once they get their building permit and, begin their
We'll have to
excavation
have
process.
more of an answer then at that point, but.
Exactly.
It's ledge.
Okay. You guys anyone want to speak, or just?
I have something. I'm with Casey Ghost. I live in the lot directly north of the frontage.
What number, sorry, just for our,
2703?
2703 where the street is. I'm the smaller
27, okay, 2703?
lot directly to the north.
Oh, okay, yep, I gotcha.
Okay, so I apologize if I missed any pieces of information. I
Wait, just 1 second on that one, just because we can figure out, because you're, as a direct abutter, she would have been. So we just wanna figure out.
So what is your address?
2703 Horton. I found out through the grapevine on the street.
We coincidentally had that also with another case, I don't know if you heard, you weren't at the last meeting, but it was briefly brought up tonight, that there's another abutter who didn't get a notice for the other Horton Street case. So it's just another weird coincidence, but we have a list of everyone who we sent one to, so that's what we're just verifying now.
So,
But while she's looking that up, if you wanna bring up whatever you have for the applicant, that's fine.
So I have questions that, I apologize.
It's okay. Nope, it's fine. It's fine.
This is all routine
Yep.
process.
Yep.
My questions are about how development of this property is going to impact my property, because I'm the closest dwelling to, I assume they'd be interested in building at the front of the property, because that's where they can test septic. That's very close to my garage, that's kind of unprecedented on our street for dwellings to be that close together. Would that impact my ability in the future to expand or remodel my home? If suddenly there's a dwelling there that, you know, I can no longer.
I mean, that's a couple different questions. I mean, for you, and for the question regarding, expanding your,
Like my garage, for example.
that would be something that you can legally do. You would, if you get too close to their property line, you may need a variance for that. And that would have nothing to do with what they do with their, there could be nothing on their property. If you do any kind of expanding and you are going, for whatever reason, your plans are going to be closer than that, then you would need a variance. But again, that would have nothing to do with the person next to you. In terms of the effect, or the effects, if any, to your property during construction, I mean, if something were to happen, and again, we kind of talked about this a few meetings ago with a different case where, let's say during construction, a tree knocked down into your property, we can't factor in, oh, we can't say yes to this because something might happen. At that point, you would have to deal with that civilly the way you would any other case. You know, we can't factor in, well, something might happen to the lot next to it. You know, but if they had to do a lot of significant, like blasting, like we talked about a few cases ago, that's more of a different story. But in terms of, like, you know, how it would affect, they can't go onto your property. They're not gonna, like, bring trucks through your yard without asking you, kind of thing.
The structure that's added wouldn't inhibit my ability to, okay.
No, no,
Thank you for that
no.
clarification. And additionally, well, it may not matter, I'd like it to be mentioned for the record, the prior variance was requested just before the former owner sold that lot, the lot that we're speaking about today, which was at the same time that he sold the property that I now own. So you mentioned that the variance was sought in 2005?
2005, it was approved in 2005, yeah.
And that lot were, I believe, 2006, according to property records. The variance was sought knowing that the owner would no longer occupy that space and would not have to deal with the proximity of the dwelling built on that land. Also, it is my understanding that this property is being developed to be sold, not to be directly occupied by the present owner, so just for consideration's sake, this is not, we're talking about people who don't have to deal with the consequences of these actions. We're an existing neighborhood, we love the integrity of our neighborhood. I know change is inevitable, but I just wanted that to be said for the record, that
Okay.
we love our neighborhood and we don't want to see it radically shift.
Carrie, do you happen to get the, is she on your butters list?
So on 2703, our records indicate that a Bantam Funding Rio LLC is the
They
owner.
were whoever the trust was that owned the home, and we purchased it from them in 2021, June.
Okay, apparently we don't have any record of that.
So that means
That's in-
something was sent to that person or
And
that
they-
that
And they did
address.
sign for it.
Okay.
So,
It wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, you just didn't get it. But that's, yeah.
There's some crazy
Yeah.
conspiracy going on, but
Yeah.
it's certainly, they're the prior owner.
No, and this is very, I mean, it's very valid for you to say, I didn't get notified. That's something that we,
But I know on like the Taunton Deeds website, we are listed.
On what website?
We sure do. We do get our property.
Okay, well, that's good.
Having said that, what does she need to do to make sure that she's on the list correctly?
Yeah.
Well, the assessors takes whatever's at the registry of deeds,
Yeah.
goes into the assessor's
How
office.
quickly, I mean,
It could take a year.
could they
for
be,
the
could they
registry.
be that behind on doing it?
No.
It could take
Okay.
up to 1
No.
year.
No.
1 year.
Right, so you may
it's-
want to follow something up, is what I'm getting at.
Any property that is sold within a year is captured at the following, usually January. So a 2021 would have been captured by 22.
Right.
So whatever we have is what the registry has.
So that's would be, I don't want to say take up with the registry, but that would be who she would go to next as to why.
I would speak to a registry and,
It's not that, oh, this, it's not that Dayton did, or this is the registry, it's what they have, it's not like our files that were wrong, it's what the registry gives us, so they're the ones that don't have it updated.
Is there something actionable on my behalf that I can do to make sure that's updated?
I would start with the assessor's office,
Okay.
and then you might want to
Start
check with
there,
your,
yeah.
with your closing attorney in 2021, if there's a discrepancy, okay?
Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to address, I mean, so as the applicant, you can certainly address the buyer's comments if you have anything to say directly about it.
So, I mean, in terms of the new construction, proximity to the abutters, in particular, the individual who was just speaking, obviously, houses have to be set back from lot lines in accordance with the zoning bylaws.
Right.
The house that will be constructed will certainly be set back and comply with the zoning bylaws. So anything that will be built there will be in conformity with what this town has approved. And I understand, I've never met an abutter that likes to have a vacant lot next door developed.
Right.
However, again, the house will be situated an appropriate distance away from their lot line, and obviously her house is situated a certain distance from the lot line. So whatever will end up there will comply with zoning requirements.
So, yeah, basically, so the whole, like, you would need a variance if you want to build closer to your property lines. Where they're building the house on their lot, we have no say in because they're within their property lines. In terms of the fact that it's, so close to yours, if you're looking like, why is that so close to my house? That dwelling would be within the setback requirements. So they're not looking, that is a separate relief that they would need. Like, they would say, oh, we want to build this house, we have less frontage, and we need to build closer to the property line. They're not doing that. They're not, like, when they construct this, they will be within their property lines. And then, about the whole intention to be sold part, do you have any kind of, I mean, not that,
I mean, I don't. I mean, I respectfully, I don't think that's within the purview of this board as to.
it's not, I just didn't know if you had any, if you wanted to address that comment, that's all. I just wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to do that if you.
Okay,
Okay.
I don't.
Were there any other, do you guys have any other comments, or just here for more information? Okay.
So she opposed it.
We're in the neighborhood as well, and we're very concerned that you guys are just passing out variances like candy.
We're abutters to both of the cases tonight, so.
Variances, I find out, like, I don't even know why we have, frontage lots, just to that point. We also have a lot across the street that was illegally developed. That we're in the-
Across from this property, or across from you guys?
Across from the Huffington property, or adjacent to Huffington property.
What's your name?
My name is Paul Tessier, my address is 2680 Portland Street.
And you had a house that was illegally built, you said?
They began illegally constructing and destroying wetlands, yes. They've been shut down, but I'm sure you guys know, you can dig out that information quickly. So that's why I'm concerned. We have variances, we have 50-foot frontage lots, we have, all this is going down very quickly, and you guys need to be very concerned.
Just,
You don't seem to have the abutters' best interest in mind.
Okay.
Can I speak to that?
Sure, good.
All right, so I see that what you've seen here today, it's in the best interest of the town of Dayton to allow a single house lot on a parcel that's larger, that can take more than one house lot. And the applicant that was here prior to us, that was 15-plus acres, they could have put 9 houses in it. It's not really in the best interest of the town of Dayton right now. So it was in the best interest for us to look at it this way. It's a family, that family is coming here, 3 son, daughter on that. In this particular case here, this was already approved by a zoning board in 2005, nothing has changed. on this piece. I understand that he could do what we call the retreat lot, but it's got a lot of topography issues and things like that. So he's tying up this entire parcel with one house. That's how we look at this, is what's in the best interest for the town at this point, because if we don't, if we,
To go back to Luongo's house, which is a done deal, but their argument was 3 is better than more, but it's legally appropriate for 2. So like the whole argument was backwards to me, that's why I'm here.
yeah, well,
I'm just concerned because, like I said, I'm to the point now, I don't even understand why we have on this laws.
We have what, I'm sorry? Frontage, oh, okay.
It just seems like you just gotta come here and ask for the variance and you get it and you just go do it.
every piece of property has its own entity though.
I understand.
So not every piece of property that comes in front of us is asking for relief of frontage would be acceptable for this particular thing. This is a rather large, to me, it looks like something from a spaceship. Rather large lot.
I'm very familiar with both.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm just saying, it's a rather large lot. So, but I feel that we are tying up this entire parcel with a single home. All right, we did adopt what you heard here, a retreat lot. This does meet the requirements for a retreat lot if it was to be happening regardless. The town has adopted that retreat lot deal. It had to be, what, 8 acres or better, this has 10.21. So if they wanted to come in front of us with a retreat lot, they would get it regardless because of the acreage and what we have going on. The town has adopted, not us, the town. So I just wanted to be clear with you that you've seen 2 cases in front of you, that we don't always just approve this and approve that. I want everybody to understand it. Every piece of property is unique. So if they didn't have the topography, the soil conditions, you have to have 3 reasons for us to approve a case for side setbacks. You have to present your case, and I feel, in my opinion, again, the topography of the land, the precondition of what was already approved by this board in 2005, nothing has changed, as well as the wetland with the power lines in the back. There's some of the hardships, reason why I feel, and I feel comfortable stating that I'd rather see 1 house than 2 or 3, 4 maybe, through that little back area. That's the reason why we voted that way. Well, we haven't voted on this yet.
Well, the previous board did, which is not us, but.
You can understand my concern.
Oh, I do,
Yeah,
I do,
I
but I
know,
want you to understand.
I feel that you as a board, as a group, collective, your job is to protect the butters and the town and the integrity of the town and community.
But if you own that piece of property and you wanted to do exactly what's being done right here, you would feel the same way. You had a chance, if it was like that, to purchase it yourself, if it was in a butter. Again.
I had a chance to buy the lot before they divided it, as did John.
What's that, I'm sorry?
We were around when the lot was divided.
Oh, okay.
We know the story, so.
Yeah. Like I say, you could have bought the lot and there would be nothing here. I can't tell someone that they own a piece of property, you can't do nothing. As long as they're meeting the requirements that this zoning board has the authority to meet on, that's pretty much what we have. I do understand where you're coming from, so I take it you're opposed?
I'm neutral, I'm just here to see what's going on. I haven't had enough information to
Sure.
make a case.
Have you seen it? The proposed lot that he's proposing where the house is gonna go and all that?
I'm familiar with both properties.
I'm sorry. Where the house?
Yeah, if you'd like to take a look at it, we have it right here. Okay?
I know where it's gonna go.
Greg, do you have any, you had your questions answered?
Yeah.
There were obviously no more abutter, are you guys abutters or?
We're here for information.
Information, okay,
Yes.
that's fine, no problem.
Anyone online?
I know we have a couple people that dinged on, is it right now just Marguerite's on?
No, the ding dong was them leading, but we still have Marguerite.
Right, but no one came in, is what I'm saying,
No.
okay. Okay, voting members, is there any other input you feel like we need, or are you ready to close the public input portion to deliberate? I mean, we know that this abutter not being notified was something with the registry, as opposed to last time where we didn't want to decide anything until we knew everyone was notified. I don't think that's a concern with this one, as it sounds like that's coincident happens to be the same street where this happened on, but it's not like there are 4 more abutters that, didn't get notified. In this case, it was just for that reason. So, I mean, I don't feel like that's a reason to hold off unless but if there's more for needs that you feel to take under advisement, I mean, I think now would be the time to discuss that, because at this point, if we're content on the information that we have, we should look to close the public input and deliberate. But if there are any more questions you want to ask, now would be the time to do that.
Well, they came in front of us for relief of frontage, correct? That's what it was, for the relief.
The one, that's the one,
So that's
yes.
realistically the only thing we can actually really vote on.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
right, yes.
And I'm comfortable with what I've read in the report that was done in 2005 of the single house lot on the entire 10.21 acres being locked up as a non-buildable, non-subdivided at this point, with a single dwelling on it, mimicking what they had in 2005.
Right, and regardless of why the roof sheet lot wasn't factored in before, like, couldn't have been, because it didn't exist.
It didn't exist.
But,
But that would have been the other option.
and that's one of the key things to keep in mind is that the retreat lot does apply here and could be used.
Sure.
But in the reasons that it was adopted in the first place are almost null and void, because even if they wanted to put other, they physically could not do anymore. So that's why, you know, similar to the last case, why should we be considering other options? A retreat lot is not even, it's applicable by definition, it's applicable, because the lot meets that requirement. But in terms of the reasoning for that, I don't think we should be considering the fact that, oh, well, it could be a retreat lot. I don't feel like that's necessary for this case. But, so that's something that we want to keep in mind too. So if there's no more questions for the voting members that need to be asked, or any other members, because if that's being said, I'll look to close the public input on it.
I'm good.
Okay. So that being said, is there a motion to close the public input portion of the case for map 10 lot 112?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close the public input for map 10, lot 112.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, any more deliberation you guys feel, and again, making sure that if there's a motion to approve, both the conditions as applied in the previous case that were applied for this case as well should be read, and then we are stating our reasons as to why. So is there a motion on the floor to approve the map 10 lot 1120 Horton Street?
Motion to approve map 10, lot 112.
Has to be done by the voting.
So you're not a board member.
Oh, okay. Well, no mistake.
Has to be voted, it has to be, well, if I'm asking there's a motion, if there's no motions, then it would be denied, so that's why I'm asking, I'm not making the motion, I'm asking if, as chairman, is there a motion to approve? So I'm looking for the voting members to make,
So, Mr. Chairman, Greg Logan, I make a motion to approve that the parcel shall be deed restricted to prohibit more than one single house from being constructed on the location of it is. No further subdivision for the parcel shall be allowed, and the petitioner shall provide evidence to the building inspector that they have received a valid septic permit and proposed single-family dwelling prior to receiving a building permit.
and so, are you stating that as a third condition, because,
Yes,
okay, so you're,
that's what's in the first.
I mean, you don't have to be reading that part verbatim, it's more like just,
I continue with what it says.
that's what you're saying, so in that case, just for the record, those are the three conditions that were on this, but they've already done the third one, they said, but,
Sure.
okay.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, you are all set.
Thank you very much, everyone.
So,
I'll be in touch with you tomorrow.
we have, no problem. We have Marguerite on the line still.
Kevin, were you planning to use the reasons you gave in deliberation, or were you planning to provide reasons at this stage?
Reasons for what? For continuing it?
For approving.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, she's right. So it's continuing on with that case, not moving on to the next item agenda. Voting members, Greg, you voted first. Can I have your reasons as to why you made your decision?
They made a decision on that matter due to the original restrictions that were recorded with the zoning board of appeals in 2005, as well as the topography and the way the back of the property has the power lines running through it. It was kind of a hardship on the developer.
I will concur with those as well as factoring in any other options as though the retreat lot law would apply here by definition because of the type of lot. It's not worth factoring that in because it's reasoning for the multiple dwellings on the property. They couldn't do that regardless. So that's why I feel like that was not the direction to give them for this case. Therefore, approving this case as presented was the best option. Dave, anything separate you want to add?
Nope. I'm basically following exactly what Greg and you said. It's basically.
That's why when I say you guys, who wants to go first, I'm like, not me, I'll wait. Okay, that being said, we will then move on to business. So again, this is not something that we're taking a vote on, just as business review, discuss and act on the Stonegate Landing LLC, westerly side of Somerset Ave, map 9, status update of phase 1. So Carrie, as we were kind of discussing before the meeting, Fedorov was only coming if he had been in contact with Weston, and we don't even know if he has yet, correct?
So there was some emails.
Oh, that's right, because you being the point, sorry, for the record, Greg is the point person, so Greg has seen stuff.
Kerry was CC'd him on as well, so there was some
Yeah.
emails that the engineer firm was looking for the site plan review of 2018, I believe it was, or
Okay.
something like that. And
Okay.
Mr. Fedorov did respond, says, I have a copy of it, when do you want me to drop it off? After that, it's been crickets.
And
So
just so I get
I
curiosity,
don't-
how long, how, are we talking, is this a week ago, is this yesterday, how long ago was?
About a week ago.
About a week ago. So it's possible that,
Actually, it was at the end of the weekend because Weston Sampson emailed him and he said, I'll have it to you for Monday.
so through email, there was no, but for all we know, they talked via phone and took care of it. We don't know that they didn't, we just don't know if they did.
Correct.
Okay. Was there any more, any more?
So they went out, they did some soil samples on the property on the outer edges of the sidewalk areas along the street.
Yep,
Two
okay.
more, they did like 4 more cores in 2 locations. Then that email came from Kerry, I was seeing it, that's when I just told you about, they were asking for the site plan, because the one they have is not the one that was originally approved in the comprehensive permit.
So is that going to, so the kind of memorandum, the very, I won't call it a brief, but it was in a sense, a brief summary of the first thing we got from them, based on what they had. Do you feel like that's going to be changed considering they didn't have the most updated plans?
There's fences in the actual easements of the road, the driveways go into the roads, so there's quite a bit of
So
things wrong.
the
over there.
reason why I'm asking that is because and for the record, it was said at that time, it was a rough estimate cost to complete.
Yes.
So when we knew that, no one was saying, that's what we're saying.
This is why we're doing
Do
it
you
now.
feel like that's gonna be changed based on, okay. So that being said, we should consider, because when we were talking about, bonds and all that kind of talk, that was based on the rough estimate dollar figure we had at that time, which sounds like, we don't know what it is yet, will probably be more than that by the time.
Well,
Things come back, correct?
When you put down a binder coat on a road and you start to get cracks through the binder coat after binder coat's only designed to stay on the infrastructure for a short period of time.
Yeah.
That's been down for 15-plus years. So there's cracks that are going down the street, where you can see actually
I know,
where
I've
they're
seen 'em.
settled, where things have happened. He's got all the wells covered, and he's only got a binder coat. So when you put a top coat, the wells are too low. So there's quite a bit of things that are gonna need to be addressed, but I'm not the engineer that's gonna
No, I
say
know,
it.
I know.
I see this, and I'm telling you
I'm more
now.
just thinking, because the last discussion that we had with him was, I'm not gonna use it, well, I will use it, it's probably the best word to use. Fedorov seemed a little more optimistic, or it seemed more realistic to him with the dollar amount that was provided at that meeting. My worry is that, it sounds like that could change exponentially based on, so my worry is that, oh God. Is there gonna be a dollar amount that's gonna be like a, whoa, hold on, different, and again, I'm not saying things are gonna change, I'm just saying that, something that we should probably be
I have a question.
considering.
How many houses are left in that development on phase 1?
Maybe 2 or 3.
Oh, okay. To look on his face, I was like, oh God, this would be a bad answer, but that's
Yeah,
it, that's it.
If that,
Yeah, there's not a lot of money there.
no.
I think one of them is an affordable. I don't know if they both are. or-
Okay, I mean,
Either way, we got 3 parcels there. He's gonna need to get a bond.
oh, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying he's not, I'm just saying,
Again, I don't want to speak because he's not here.
Nope, I know.
But on the end of the day, after looking at what I saw, after walking through, seeing what was going on, there's detent ponds that have never even been hooked up. Ladies have got a swing set sitting on top of one of them. You know, it's a mess.
Well,
It's a mess.
yes.
So, and thank God for the engineer firms realizing that that wasn't the actual site drawing that was supposed to be.
I will say,
because-
based on the interview, not to go back to that, but based on the interview process, I and the other members who were on that were very,
Yeah, I was.
we're very,
I thought it
oh,
was
oh,
very-
the second meeting you were here, that's right, we're very content with who we picked, and it sounds like we,
Yeah.
I don't know how they've been for other matters for the town, but
Meeting
I'm
them
standing,
out there,
standing by them right now, but.
Meeting them out there in the field. they
Oh,
was
right,
very-
because was that your first time meeting them specifically?
Yeah.
It was, okay,
Actually,
and,
the workers out in the field.
and that went well?
Yep.
Have you had any kind of conversations with Marguerite or anything about this?
No,
or-
not yet.
Not,
Like
not
I
that
said,
not that you should have, I'm just kind of curious.
I was kind
yeah.
of just waiting to get the engineering back and then go
Just
from
hoping
there
we would have by now,
because.
I would rather than be taking more time if it's going to be more thorough. Like, originally I was hoping we'd have it done, more information by now.
Yeah.
But if we don't have more information by now because they're doing more work to find more, then take the time that they need. I'd rather them do that than rush through it and, every other month, wait this. I'd rather them take 2 months or 3 months and be really concise with it, which sounds like that's what's been happening,
So
so.
you're gonna have the base coat of the infrastructure is gonna be determined whether it's good or bad on this meeting.
The next meeting you're saying, okay.
Yeah, well, when they have their engineering completed.
Okay.
There was talk of I forgot her name that was here about water filling her backyard and everything.
Yep, yep.
And we determined that we saw a few things. There was a swale, they planted trees within, and there is a driveway that was put in after the fact and stopping the water from running down to the drain in the street.
Which would have nothing to do with the developer at
It's not
that point,
the
that's that resident, and,
But we did
but
see-
it was
did
at least something you
see,
noticed, okay.
The orchard's elevation with their swale isn't working correctly and it's running into her property. So there's a few miscellaneous things that the engineer firm will be bringing up.
Okay. Marguerite, do you have anything that you've found about this recently or heard on or discussed with anybody?
So I've been copied on the same emails that you've seen as well, and I do agree as well that at this stage, I think that it's better for the board to make sure that the engineer is completing the tasks that they've been asked to complete and not feeling rushed.
No, absolutely.
I will say that I believe one of the tasks that the engineering firm will be doing or providing to the board is the recommended bond amount. I think the
Yes.
only numbers that have actually been shared with Mr. Federoff is the cost for the engineering firm to actually do the work, which would involve making a recommendation of the bond amount. I don't think he's ever been given some type of an estimate of that.
You're
bond.
right.
So
You're right, I'm,
trying to clarify that.
yes, thank you, that was my mistake, that's what I meant, I said costs complete, just because I'm used to us saying that term. But, that's so right, obviously the cost complete would be different, but I did say the wrong term, but thank you for that clarification. Do you have any more input on this case, Marguerite? Not case, but this matter?
No, not at this time. I'm still waiting to see the engineering report, and I'm available if people need to contact me about any sort of historical or, comprehensive permit process questions.
Jim, I know you're not here for this, but do you have any comments on, have you been in any kind of contact?
Zero.
Oh, man, zero.
Zero.
Have you?
I don't know where this is going.
No, I just didn't know if you, in your travels that you,
No, unfortunately not. I wish I did.
have you met anyone from the new engineering firm?
Yes,
Yeah, I know how you're, for other matters obviously besides ours, but,
I think they're doing a great job.
Awesome.
Yes.
Carrie, have you had any interaction with them? I guess not really, just more just probably any email correspondence?
On
or-
the planning board
But that-
side, I
on the
have a
planning
lot
board,
of
oh, right,
interaction.
yeah, that's been good.
Yeah,
That's
very
good.
good.
Yeah. I'm glad the town put that process forward.
Yeah, I would say, Craig, I know you weren't at the first interview, but after the first interview, we felt a certain way. And then the first meeting was not an interview, it was just a meeting with the proposals. And then after the interviews, there was one that was pretty good. One that we knew was probably not the stronger of the two, and then they came in last, and we were like,
You had it
I
right
think
here.
when, it was right there, I was like, I
I
think
was
we
here
all
for that.
know our decision, like, it was pretty clear based on their
We met
proposal.
we met all three.
Because, you were there too, right, for that, for both of them, yeah, and it was very clear that they were the stronger of the three candidates, without a doubt, and I'm glad to see that that's been the case, so.
Yes.
All right, any additional correspondence, Carrie?
No.
No. All right, so next would be to approve the meeting minutes for March 26, 2024. Is there,
Motion to approve minutes from March 26, 2024.
is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Good night, Marguerite.